to walk us through key elements of the data that we've anonymized, from VAT to PAYE to withholding tax to the broad picture in terms of the total contribution. So he's going to walk us through all of that, and then we'll get some remarks from Mr. William Dimitia, and then Mr. Frank also here with us, Frank Kessie. Yes. He will also give us his remarks. And then we have reps from MTN, reps from AT, and Helio is also present, and Vodafone as well. And then ATC, represented here. And this is not like the usual event that we do, where it's, big and with a lot of pomp and pageantry. This is supposed to be a very straightforward one. It's been live streamed as well, so you're welcome, all of you who are watching us virtually or online. I'm going to start with a short prayer, and then Ken will take over, and we hope to be out of here by 3:30. Thank you. Shall we close our eyes? Father, Lord, thank you so much for this particular day. We are grateful for bringing each and every one of us here safely. We pray that we commit today's program into your hands, and then pray that you will guide us to be able to engender more trust between ourselves and our stakeholders, strengthen us so that our industry will be able to contribute better than it has contributed in the past. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So, Ken, I don't know if you can hear me. You can take over now.
Right. So, thank you very much. And as the guest said, we have the RWC 23. This is the World Telecommunications, the ITU's World Radio Communication Conference. That happens every 4 years. And so this is where we determine globally the spectrum and how it's going to be used, how it's going to be allocated, and all of that. So there's a lot of jostling that's happening here. The chamber is part of the national delegation, and was supporting Ghana's position that has moved on to become the ECOWAS position, as well as the African Telecoms Union position. And hopefully we should be able to get our interest in the final declaration that would come. So thank you again. And as Bobie said, today we are here to launch the Mobile Industry Transparency Initiative for 2022. That looks at our contribution to the entire country and the importance of the industry, what we stand for, and how together we'll be able to pull everybody along. It's important that we put that into perspective. The tendency has been for the states to look at us governments throughout the Fourth Republic, to look at us more as the cash cow rather than that workhorse that would drive other businesses up. One of the challenges I have with the current budget was that when all of these tax holidays were being given, our thought was that, considering the fact that telecommunication is foundational to ensuring real growth and getting us out of the financial crises, we would have offered also some tax holidays to manufacturers of devices, because the challenge we have is a lot of our people are still using feature phones. A lot of our people are using basic phones. And it would have been great for us to go the route that Rwanda has gone. They, for example, got some support from Netflix. And they are working with one of the operators there to give smartphones out to the subscribers for free. Then another of the subscribers are also doing where people are paying as they go to be able to obtain smartphones. And it is really critical that we try and support the industry to be able to get a lot more people getting smartphones, so that we can deal with one of the major challenges that we currently have, is that we have almost coverage of about 90-something%, which you will see in the report. But when it comes to usage, you have about 70%. That means that if you take 100 Ghanaians, 70 out of them would have at least 3G coverage, but are not accessing mobile internet. And we know that if you get people using mobile internet, the contribution to GDP is very high. So thank you again. And so I'll take us through as we launch the report. Today, we had the report in the daily graphic of today. And after this, I'm pretty sure we'll share copies with you. So this year, what we've tried to do is not just do our regular total tax contribution. We've tried to go beyond just the taxes and the levies and the fees that we pay and looked at other aspects of the contributions that we do to government. So we've looked at the issues, even the issues of mobile number portability, the charges that come with that, SIM registration, the costs that come to that, the payments that we do to the NCA for providing the common platform, the payments that we have to do to the NIA, the business operating permits as well. So you would have the payments we do to be able to get the cell sites up and all of that. That also, you will see how much we have contributed to that. Then EPA, we also make some payments, especially the tower companies, when it comes to the permits that and processing fees that we pay. And then radiation protection as well, to ensure that telecommunication is safe. The government has the Radiation Protection Institute that does an independent check and audit. And that is also being done again. The NCA also does the same thing as well. Then for GCA, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, they need to also ensure that there's a safety of aircraft, and also there's some permit fees that we pay to them. Then for every telecommunication fiber that is laid in the right of way, if you take the fees fixing, it is only telecommunication companies that pay right of way. In the past, it was even bad. We're paying it in dollars. But fortunately, that has been changed. And now that we are a critical information infrastructure, you would have thought that the same way water and electricity do not pay, we would also be the same. But you see how much we're paying for that. Then property rates, that also go to the assemblies. And then GIPC to our members. We do some permits, fire permits as well, and there's some payments that's done. Then the stamp duty that is also paid, we also would show you that. Then also the mandatory payments that you make for our staff. So the SNIT pension, for example, is mandatory that you make. It does not go to government. It would go to the staff at the end of when the person goes on retirement. But it's also a statutory payment that we make. And then our members also pay Provident Fund as well. So the second tier, the third tier are paid. And then we'll try and do a quick comparison with what happened in 2021. And so the report, I'm sure you can see the report on the right side of my screen. So the first one is the total tax contribution. So this is basically all taxes that we bear or we collect, and other remittances that we pay to government, to allied industries. And the total amount is 6.7 billion, almost 7 billion. So that if you looked at what it is that we paid last year, the 4 or so billion, the growth has been very significant when it comes to that. Then in terms of the CIT, corporate income tax, which is we think it's one of the most progressive things that we should be doing. It was 1.3 billion that was paid. VAT was almost $1 billion, 922 million. Then withholding tax, that includes the withholding tax on VAT as well, was around 680 million. Then the e-levy that was also introduced accumulated 483 million. Government initially had projected some 6 billion, and we had posited that was not possible. Then when you put together the NHIL Get Fund and then the COVID levy that was introduced, we also paid a total of 768 million. Then CST, another very retrogressive tax, very industry-specific tax, also contributed 512 million. Then the PAYE that we paid on staff salaries also came to a total of 175 million. And when you take the other remittances that were paid, the total that we paid for this year was 560 million. That is from the 344 million that we paid last year. And the reason this is also gone up, apart from some of those lines going up, is because we had introduced some new lines in there as well. So with all of this, so not only is the industry pushing and making this contribution to government, over 6 billion contributions to government. In that particular line as well was the import duties, again, that we also pay. Is the mobile financial services that are increasingly beginning to, I don't like the word used, formalizing, our economy, because for me, I think that what people call derogatorily informal is a real sector. So what we're doing is that we're using mobile money to empower them and enable them to contribute a bit more. And the jobs that are created, 505,000 active agents that were created. And if you take an agent that is registered, each of them might have about 4 or so other people working for them. So if you do the math, that's almost coming to 2 million people that are engaged. And these are the active ones, not just the numbers that are registered. If you go to the Bank of Ghana site, you find out that some that have been registered, but we look at the 90-day active for this particular classification. Then in terms of mobile money active customers, again, using the 90-day, that in 90 days at least you should have done one transaction. That is 20.38 million subscribers. Then a number that for me is very important is that the float, the cash that if it had not been for mobile money would have been sitting in other people's pocket, but it's now at the banks, that the banks now are able to intermediate, is 13.7 billion cedis. That's how much the industry has also been able to bring in. So the industry is about people. It is about people. That's basically what it is. Those of us who work in the industry, those of us who partner us and work in the industry, and the people we impact. So in terms of direct jobs, over 2,600 direct jobs that has come. And then in terms of indirect, about 3.1 million indirect jobs is what we've done. And in terms of the pensions payment, if you add the SNIT and the Provident Fund together, it's about 100 million is what we paid. And then another interesting number is the capital expenditure. This industry is very capital intensive. And with all of those capital intensive investments that we make, it also creates jobs for other people as well. And so about 3 billion cedis is how much was invested for only just 2022. And then in terms of corporate social responsibility, we spent a lot of money in corporate social responsibility as well. Then in terms of the technology, in 2G, we have about 99%. We should by now be thinking of shutting down 2G. The reason why we can't shut down 2G is that a lot of our customers, subscribers, have feature phones and basic phones, as I said. So it's about 99%. 3G is also about the same. 4G also is about 99%. The challenge you have is that if you go to every district capital now, there's 4G. The challenge is how many of them are using it. That's why I talk about the 70% usage gap that we have, which we need to bridge. And the challenges with those, part of it is affordability. Part of it is relevant content. Another one is literacy. And all of that, we all need to work to be able to bridge that gap. So you have about 39.7 million SIMs. And so more than the population of this country, because of the multiple SIMs that we have. SIM registration has come and gone. It's continuing, but we still have that number. And then if we really want to push, one of the things we need to do is to push our fixed networks as well, especially when it comes to data. But for voice, you have about 330. That space really is not growing. And then your mobile broadband, both mobile, fixed network, and BWAs, you have a total of 22.8 million. And we need to be able to grow that a lot more. Then in terms of average revenue per user, we have grown from what the numbers we reported in 2021, which was 22.94 CDs per month, to 26.36 CDs per month. And this is the average revenue that is made per user. Then our contribution to tax, and then our contribution to GDP. So if you take all our revenues as a percentage to Ghana's GDP, with the non-oil GDP, we're contributing 22.7% to that. And then when you take the taxes that are collected by GRA and the taxes we pay, the contribution is 7.28%. And so you see the inequity that is here, that, our revenue in terms of all the revenues put together, GDP is 2.7%, 2.3%. But when it comes to our contribution to tax, we are paying almost 3 times, 7.3%. And that is the equity that exists. And still, as a country, we still are taxing the industry like any of the sin, industry. So when you extract all of that out of the industry, how much then will be left for investments that has to be made? So it is really important that government looks again at it. How do we ensure that we can expand and make sure that the technology is available to everybody? How do we ensure that there's enough money left for the operators, for the tower companies, for the infrastructure companies to be able to expand fiber to every country, every part of the country? If we are extracting so much upfront, and you take situations like CST, for example, it is, payment that you do upfront, so for the people, instead of they using the facility, making a lot more profit, and you charging them CIT, you tax them upfront. Then you have the e-levy also, again, that has also been introduced. So we need to look at this two indices and find ways in which we can create the fiscal space for the industry. So quickly, let me run through some of the gaps that have happened. So PAYE, for example, went up by 27%. CST went up by 26%. Withholding tax went up by 11%. VAT 43%. Get fund e-levy COVID 24%. Then when you take COVID levy as well, that because of the start time, you can see that grew about almost 90%. Import duties, how much import duties that came in. And again, all of it's one of the things that had pushed this as well is the depreciation of the cedi in 2022. So that pushed imports, apart from the fact that volumes grew, you also had the cedi, once you convert it into cedi, to 78%. And CIT went up by 42%. That National Fiscal Stabilization Levy. This is a levy that the SAN should have set on long ago, but it looks as if the sunset clause, from the NDC to the MPP, it's still there. And then dividend tax as well also went up. Business operating permits went up also very significantly. And this is monies that go to the assembly. So there's a lot of contribution, not only at the national level, but also, and so we paid 7.4 million last year to the assemblies in business operating permits. A majority of this is paid by the tower companies. Then EPA as well got 6.9 million in 2022, a growth of about 430%. Part of it is also the increase in the fees that EPA got. Fortunately, we were able to dialogue with them and got some agreement. RPI, Radiation Protection Institute, also the numbers grew. 1.3 million is what we paid. Ghana Civil Aviation Authority also grew by 130%. We paid them 43 4.3 million in 2022. Right of way. This is how much we pay to Ghana Highway Authority, Department of Urban Roads, and some of it also goes to the assemblies as well. 9.7 million is what we pay. We pay all of this, but there's still a lot of destruction of fiber. Then in terms of SNIT and the PF, the percentage also went up by 75%. So in summary, this is at the total tax and other payment to government reports for 2022. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Bobie, and I'll be available after our two experts, Frank and William, had given us their insights. If there are any questions, I will be able to take them. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ken. I think he deserves a round of applause. I mean, thank you. So, like you said, we have two experts within our midst, and we're going to start first with Mr. William Dimitia to give us his thoughts on what has been shared with us. And, if there are any questions, the crowd is welcome to, ask any. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bobby, and good afternoon to all of us. I think Dr. Ken Ashigbe has said a lot. I don't want to ask it to a repeat, but I just have a few thoughts I want to share. Now, looking at the data, it looks like CST and e-levy, the industry contributed almost 1 billion Ghana cedis to government's tax revenue. That's a huge leap. Now, the question I ask myself is, what is the impact of these two tax types on the business as it is, okay? And that, for me, is critical. What I would encourage Dr. Ken Ashigbe and his team to do is that the next time we meet, or even before we meet the next time for another round, I want the chamber to conduct an empirical study on the impact of these two tax types, CST and e-levy, on the operations. That is number one. Number two, I want them to also be able to come out with alternative ways in which the incidence of these two tax types can be modified in a way that, one, reduces the impact of these taxes on the growth of the industry, and number two, does not disproportionately affect government revenue. I repeat, the empirical study I want to be done on these two tax types is I want to see the impact of it on the growth of the industry, and number two, alternative ways in which these taxes can be implemented in a way that does not impact the growth, because as we know, tax policies can either engender growth or can be an inhibition. That does not impact the growth, but also guarantees government revenue in a way that government would be satisfied. Because I think most often than not, we come to the policy table not having this data to back our case. And whenever these policies are designed in the budget, read out and fleshed out in law, it misses this critical input from stakeholders. So I'd encourage Dr. Ken Ashigbe and his team to look at that. Also, the 2024 budget, as was read by the Minister of Finance, indicated that for CST, there will be, as it were, onboarding of other persons who should be charging CST. I think the aim of everybody is that if they are onboarded and the revenue increases, then probably we should be looking again at the rate at which CST is charged and even how it is collected. As Doc said, collected upfront, whether it shouldn't be by way of usage, as opposed to it being collected upfront. Now, the last point I want to make is on Ghana's medium-term revenue strategy. We launched a document not too long ago, and we looked at our medium-term revenue strategy. It was in a number of things in terms of direct taxes, indirect taxes, international taxes. I would also want to encourage the chamber. What you may have to do is to be able to engage government to develop industry-specific medium-term revenue strategies. That one, again, is able to grow the industry, and two, is able to assure government that its revenue would not be negatively impacted. I believe that if we are able to do this stakeholder engagement, be able to have these policy conversations, sit around the policy table, and be able to bring out alternative ways in which we increase government revenue, we can assure the industry that they have a partner in government, and it can be a basis for growth. One of the major things I realized from Doc's presentation is how much money they spend on CAPEX just in 2022. I know that it can be done where we can give accelerated depreciation for monies expended in CAPEX. So, for example, if it comes to what we know to be the stamps that are fixed on these things, as we know them, the law guarantees those who purchase the machines that are able to affix them accelerated depreciation, where they have 50% depreciation in year 1 and 50% depreciation in year 2. That simply means for tax purposes, you are able to recover the cost of that expenditure in 2 years. Is it a conversation we can have for the industry, giving, as it were, the impact of these expenditures on the industry? How does that affect government in terms of getting CIT? How do we guarantee that government is able to get its revenue alongside? So looking at modified capital allowance rules for the industry would not be a novelty because, as I said, it's already being done. Some of these policies we can bring around the table, have the discussion, and see how that impacts the industry. That will be all I'll say for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for him. So like we said, we're keeping this very short. He's speaking, and the next to speak is Mr. Frank Kesiano from KKGO. Let's welcome him with a round of applause, please.
Okay, thank you. I hope not to talk more than my senior. Okay, so I'm looking at all this from the point of view of tax disputes and settlement. We know tax is the creature of statutes, interpretations of laws and regulations, so definitely there are bound to be frictions and different interpretations. This is an industry that has paid so much in taxes. Of course, we should give them a voice when they have a dispute and how to resolve it. Some few minutes ago, we were discussing a ruling that just came out, how we look at it. When the case even started somewhere in 2021, and it just got the ruling on 9th November, like a few days ago. And it has taken almost 2 years. How did you get here? Our laws have set how disputes are settled. You object, a commissioner looks at it. If you disagree, you go to court. So somewhere 2 years ago, when the minister introduced what you call the Independent Tax Advisory Board, everybody was expected. So we thought this will give a relief to taxpayers and practitioners, an opportunity to get issues resolved faster. 2 years later, the board was inaugurated. So everybody was excited still. We've been waiting. And 10 months and counting, we are yet to see the office opened. In as much as taxpayers, industry, specific telcos and others want to pay their taxes, they want to pay fair and good taxes. I mean, they have to be convinced that this tax that I'm paying, that yes, it's what I need to pay. So I'm sure as the industry pays its taxes, in as much as getting accelerated depreciation for all the expense they put in, if they can also ask the government that where we want our voices to be heard, please get it done. I'm sure and I hope that the setup of this office will not be how the OSP was done. We give them the resources and the independence that they need to work out so that when taxpayers have issues, they will have voices to be heard through. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So on our running order, we have Q&A with the media. But Ken, I don't know if you have any reactions to that. And if anyone has a reaction in the audience as well, you can feel free to express them.
Well, thank you very much. My comments are that the points made by Frank and William are really, really very insightful, and it's something that we need to pick on going forward. So in terms of the research, Bobby, that one is in your area, so your work is cut out. And this challenge with setting up this independent tax tribunal is really long overdue. And I'm sure we should be pushing and asking questions about that, especially next year, to see what would happen with that. The interesting thing I would want to even say is that again with the e-levy, William, when we submitted a proposal to government on the e-levy, we were proposing that even, and we're looking at it in such a way that government still gets its revenue, but the impact also on the consumer is reduced. So our proposal was even for the levy, the transfer portion of the levy to be reduced from the 1% to the 0.5%, and then introduce a cash a levy of 0.5 on the cash out, so that if I was sending William, say 100 CDs, I would now, instead of the 1 CD, okay, so let's say 200 CDs, because of the, if it's my first 200 CDs, if it's not my first 200 CDs, I'll pay 1 CD on that. But with this one, what it would mean is that I'll pay 50 pesos on what I'm sending. And then if William gets the money, and we want to encourage William to keep the money on his wallet and use it for other transactions, then he does not pay the cash out levy. But if he wants to cash it out, then he pays the e-levy on that. So that when you do that, the incidence of those who are sending goes down, and then also government's revenue is not impacted. It could actually rather result, and we worked some numbers, it could result in government increasing its numbers. And then this whole thing about the capping of the e-levy, so that put a cap on it. Currently, operators put a cap of about 1,000. We're even proposing that you do a cap of 2,000. So when you send up to 2,000, you just pay, maybe it's a 10 CDs, that's what you pay. Because what has happened is that a lot, now when people want to send mobile money and the amount is high, because our alternative channels, they will send it through the banks. So then what happens, the government completely loses money out of that. The system also that requires this as the lubricant to keep turning, also you lose that on that. And then there is this thing as well. There are some discriminatory practices in the law that says that if you do bulk disbursement, so if LEAP, for example, you're doing bulk disbursement, and that's how you're funding wallets, you pay e-levy on it. And it's also affecting loans as well. So if you take a loan from the bank, if I take a loan from any of the banks, I don't get to pay any, the banks would not have to pay any e-levy on the disbursement of the loan into my account. But if you took a loan from any of these mobile money loans, what will happen is if they are disbursing it, there is e-levy on it, and that's how the law is structured. And so then that results in you, the banks having to pay that for you, and so then that you will pay that as processing fee. And so that's also one of the things that we're asking government, to take off. And a few other discriminatory practices. So I think the point William makes is we need to do a lot more of this, taking CST, taking e-levy, and see how we can redo it so that we can share that with government. The medium-term tax strategy as well for the industry, that has to be looked at so we can attract a lot more investment back into the system. So I think the points, these are good suggestions. And then as Frank said as well, we need to push on that so that hopefully we should be able to get government getting a lot more money out of the ecosystem, and then getting the ecosystem to also grow and become the rails on which other sectors can also ride on.
All right, so thank you, Ken. It's time now for the Q&A. We have Graphic, we have GNA and TV3 here, in case you have any questions. And also, if you are not even with the media, but you are in the audience and you want to ask any questions, please just feel free, raise your hand, and then I'll bring the mic to you. Oh, yeah.
So mine is not a question. Just some few comments. William mentioned how we can help government raise revenue, and without the industry being impacted. I think one of the key problems that we have all advocated, but it seems we are not getting results, is the cascading effects of the VAT on levies. Today, if you buy 10 cedis airtime, you pay 2 cedis 20 pesos, 10 cedis. In other words, about 28% taxes just for the indirect tax. So what is left for you to talk is just 7 cities, 80 pesos, and apply it to everything. And because of the cascading effect of me adding COVID levy, Get Fund, NHIL, and then the CST before the VAT, certainly consumers will be expecting a reduction in the amount of or the minutes available to them. And for me, gone are the days when we were selling the SIM card for a very huge amount of money, thinking the SIM card was giving us the money. Rather, that was not giving us the money, but the usage. I believe that we need to look at it in a holistic manner and see whether if we bring it down, people will still consume for volume to increase without necessarily increasing the price. I also like the idea of the accelerated depreciation on some of the equipment. I don't know how government will take it. Yes, we know it is operating in the brewery industry. It's something that we can push. Again, the question is, why don't we exempt completely smartphones from duties? This has been something that has been on the table, but today, if you go to the HS code, we still see some import duties on smartphones. When people are looking at 5G, we are still with 2G and paying for 2G license. It seems we are getting behind. And so the better we quickly adjust to the growing trend. Today, I hear there's digital audio broadcasting, which is upcoming. You can't do that with 2G. You need an upgraded technology to do. And so for me, it's something that we can look at. Again, the final point I want to make is e-levy. Like Doctor said, there are so many inconsistencies. And those inconsistencies are also making or creating room for people to, I have alternatives. If in the banking sector it doesn't apply, I can transfer 20,000 in a banking platform on a banking app without paying it. Why should I pay when I dial 7170 to pay? So either we sit down and realign our policies. Otherwise, we will see the e-levy as a nuisance tax, which some are saying it should go. There are so many alternatives, and the policies do not align. I think that we have to sit down as a nation and realign the whole policies. Thanks.
Thank you. So I just want to do some contribution. I want to commend the chamber for this paper that every year we bring out. Because there's one thing that I've realized, which is lack of education of the telecom industry to our lawmakers or the powers that be. Because it appears that there's a lack of understanding of the business, whereby it is taken that it is an industry that we can milk things out, an industry that we can cash out. And we forget that this industry is one of the industries that has a very high capital-intensive industry. When I was moving from the manufacturing into the telco, I was saying, but telco, there's no cost. That was the perception that I was having. But when I came in, I realized that no, with your tower costs, with having the technology always changing, having you modifying your radios, your antennas, and moving on to sites. Now all towercos they are pegging their escalations to CIP and the CPI, and looking at where our CPI is. So you can imagine where our tower cost has galloped to. So for me, I think that this is a very good thing that the industry is doing, which will give them a sense of understanding and what the industry is going through, so that maybe I'm praying that one day they will come to the table and understand our plea. And some of the taxes will come down. Because if you look at some of the judgments and the applications that are being given, you realize that the perception is different. And when it comes to taxing the telecom industry,
it's a different game altogether. So Ken and the team, bravo, and this is something that the country need, and it should get to the height that people will get the information from what the industry is going through. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We said we'll keep this very short, so now it's time for the media to ask any questions if they have, and Doc is available to answer them. Ready?
Doc, on the huge tax burden on the industry, what would be the Chamber's specific recommendations to government and its tax agencies to ensure that there is a win-win situation for both parties?
Is there another one before Doc comes in? Anyone?
Yeah, Doc. So one thing that I've also noticed is most of mobile money agents, I don't know, because of charges, most when you are transferring money, they will tell you they don't have enough in their wallet. But if you are if you are loading your wallet, let me say, if you are loading your wallet, they will tell you that they don't have enough on their wallet. But if you are willing to pay with the charges, as if you are sending to someone else and are going to pay with the charges, that one they will say they have funds available and they will take because you are paying. So what is the chamber doing about this to ensure that we are able to load our wallets, because that's what we are advocating for? What is the chamber doing to ensure that we are able to load our wallet smoothly?
All right, Ken, so 2 questions. That's all from the media.
Right. Okay, so the first question about how do we reduce the burden, and I'm not too sure I mentioned this number, but last year, for every 1 CD that as revenue that comes to the sector, 47, or let's say 100 CDs, 47.69, that's about 47.69%. That's almost 48%, goes back to government in the forms of fees, levies, taxes, and all of that. Interestingly, it came down slightly to 46%, but that is still too much. So then how much money then you leave, for other investments that have to be made and all other payments that you need to do. So, and I think William, some of the suggestions that William brought, we need to get the data to be able to support that, to go back to government and say to them that if we change the form in which you do it, in the long term, this is how it would translate. And, as industry, we would have to live with the fact that we have a 4-year election cycle. So most politicians, they are looking at what they can do in the 4 years so that they can come back to power. So you can't go and be talking that the long-term benefits are this. You still need, so it's one of the things that we need to do. So, for example, when we did this, the e-levy proposals that we set to government, we did some simulations that was showing that if you did the change in that particular manner, it was going to make government not be worse off. So that's a lot more of that would have to be done. And interestingly, for government itself, you remember that CST was 6%, it was moved to 9%, came down to 5%. I've not looked at the data, but when it was moved from 9 to 6%, the levels rather went up. So we need to look at the incidence, the rates at which you are taxing, and where we are placing the taxes to make sure to be able to grow and turn the wheels around. So what we have to do to government is basically do a lot of this talking, but make it data-based. It's the reason why when we do this initiative, we share this data with you, the media, so that you also share. And then when we engage with government, we would be able to share a better, even e-levy, from the 1.5 to 1%, we've seen growth. And we believe that if we can reduce it further, that would happen. So it is going to be about being able to do a lot more data-driven work. But the issues of some recalcitrant agents, it is basically going to be about engaging them. And then also for all of us as customers, when you go to an agent and you experience some of these things, call your network providers and report them, because then this is not the way they are supposed to operate, so that then we can know, and then we'll be able to deal with that.
I want to I'm not saying this. I want to suggest if you like it, then you say yes. So, look, government grants exemptions on certain products, especially when it is imported for some strategic reasons. Recently, the government exempted machinery for agri purposes. The reason possibly could be that to make the food we buy cheaper. So, Doc, maybe consider making a case for some of these telecom equipments to be granted full exemption when it is imported. The reason is that telecom equipments are not going to be used for any other thing than telecommunication. And if we make it more cheaper for CAPEX, look at the amount we are incurring for CAPEX, 3 billion. This amount could be channeled through a reduction of operational expenses. And I believe that cost of data per megabyte can drop so that consumers can still benefit. Telecommunication is a strategic service which we cannot. I don't know how many days I can stay without my phone.
So when you look at the tower companies, for example, once they bring the lithium-ion batteries in, which are also then get prone to being stolen, the duties that are on it, some of the inverters that come out. So I think the point you make is true. Equipment that can specifically be seen as being used by the telecommunications, we need to be able to go to government and say that if you grant us this exemption, that amount of money can either be used in rolling out a lot more or should be able to then impact on the cost of a megabyte or a byte of data that we all would buy. So I think that's definitely an important point. What we just needed to do is be able to show the numbers and then be able to engage government in this direction.
Thank you. Hello? Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Doc. Two observations quickly. You mentioned about trying to mitigate cost on the consumer, but often than not, you realize that these taxes or the cost that comes with it, it goes, is the consumer that bears it. We keep passing it on to the consumer or the subscriber. So how do we find a way to mitigate that, to mitigate these things, to ensure that these taxes or these extra costs that comes with it, it's not passed to the consumer all the time? Then two, talking about the recalcitrant agents and the rest, I have had experience in the last 2 weeks. And the truth is that when you even complain, they tell you confidently, MTN will not do anything. And I'll be specific. When you go to Lekman Hospital, I've been there last week. I tried cashing out. And because I was cashing out beyond the 1,000 Ghana cedis, they insisted that I pay additional to cover for the cost. Else they won't. And I went to about 4 vendors. They all insisted. So you call the the network provider, and they want you to provide some form of evidence. Why can't they also go out, send their teams to just go openly, as secret agents, go and conduct this investigation? So I don't know what the chamber can do to help us also as subscribers. Thank you. Sure. My name is Nima Atebuche from Ghana News Agency. So I'm saying that with my first question, I'm asking that often than not, you realize that the extra costs or the tax you are talking about sometimes is passed to the consumer. I mean, directly or indirectly. How do we find ways and means to ensure that the consumer is not affected or we don't pass all of these taxes on to the consumer? Thank you.
It's about making profit. Some of the taxes you can pass on. Some of them you will not be able to pass on. And it would stick with you. And so that's why we need everybody, all of us, because we are all customers and consumers. we need to all realize the fact that now the ITU terms telecommunications as a human right. It is a utility. Most of us, you will touch your phone before you might even, you go and bath. And so we need to let government realize the fact together that the taxes on this. So when you look at the issues of CST and then the VAT, as Francis said, it is the incidence on the customer. That is the thing, because you and I as customers, we pay the CST, we pay the VAT and all the levies. And how do we get us to have enough airtime, enough data to do our businesses, turn it around, and then at CIT level, we can pay that. So that's definitely a good point you make. And it's the same thing we're doing. And we need to be able to engage government so that the incidences will be reduced. William had also mentioned the fact that now we've had the CST, others going to be rolled on. I want to see the details of that, to see whether if we bring others on, can we move from the 5% to maybe 1% and maybe finally abolish it. Those are all things. But in terms of the agents, there's a lot of mystery shopping that happens. So if you go onto the Bank of Ghana website now, you'll find out the number of agents that are there, and cumulative compared to the active, then there's a gap in between them. So agents are blacklisted, So some of these things, all I would urge all of us that once we will do a mystery shopping, if we find them out, we deal with them. But if you also see it, report it. But there are also some good agents there who are doing some good jobs as well.
Hand over there. There you go.
Thank you, Doc. My is a question. A lot of comment was made about how the chamber made certain interventions leading to the likes of e-levy. And then I get a sense that probably the government didn't take some of these interventions. So my first question is that how strong is our voice as a chamber in influencing government policy in terms of taxes and similar charges? And if we're successful in the past, can we highlight those successes in our subsequent briefings, at least to help us appreciate the amount of influence we have going forward? Thank you.
Okay.
When new policies are coming, where the budget is going to be read, there's quite some engagement that goes into that, and it results in some changes being made. The recent example was the e-levy, for example. The chamber led the research, working together with GRA and all of that. We did some research, and then we also worked with GSMA to do another on the same e-levy, which was presented. We were proposing 0.5, but we got 1% as the way the number it was reduced to. So in terms of CST, there are some engagements that happen in that area. So it's something that we continue to do to try and push the advocacy. And so this time we are trying to do a lot more data-driven advocacy so that we can show the numbers to government, so that then they then see that these are the alternatives. And again, as William has suggested, in all of this, you need to be able to go to government and say you'll not be worse off. And so that's something that will be coming to William, as the academics, so we can work together, and then Frank, to see what research we can do, and then take the empirical evidence there. It's the name of the game, once you are able to show it to people. At least the government got a finger bend with e-levy. We've been saying it severally. They didn't listen, and finally this is where it is. So we need to do a lot more of that. And as a chamber too, we are Ghanaians first. We are citizens, so we know that government needs the taxes. The challenge is how do you do it such that the net effect would not be as they say, the marginal returns will not be negative for you yourself as government revenue, and then also for citizens, you and I as consumers as well. So we continue to do that engagement, and it's not only in the tax areas. A lot of the policy dimensions, we continue to have it. I'm pretty sure the tower companies will tell you that the engagement we had with EPA, for example, led in a reduction in how much they are paying, because the initial figure was about 500% increment, and we had to engage on that. RPI was also another one in terms of the fees that we had to do some engagement. Just today, we've been dealing with some MCs that also wants to charge some money, some DCE, and so you go and engage. But we don't want to be doing this reactive ones. We want to do what, like William has said, medium term. If we can take the medium term tax strategy and come up with some solution, come up with some strategy options and back them with numbers, and government can take that and it will form part of the medium term tax strategy for the industry. That's the next level that we need to go to.
Okay, so no more questions? If there isn't, then Doc, maybe I don't know if you give some closing remarks, and then we'll wrap today's session up. I mean, it's been good.
I don't know whether William and Frank will also have anything to close.
Yeah. Let me take the mic to William first.
Okay. Yeah, Doc, putting me on the spot. Thank you very much. I think a lot has been said. A lot of knowledge, experiences have been brought onto the fore. I remember when e-levy, for example, was read in the budget and the proposal was 6.9 billion. In my interview, I said that, well, we are getting import duties of 9 billion, a tested tax handle. I wonder how we can implement e-levy for the first time and get 6.9 billion. And that was a major concern of mine. And some of us were tagged as boomongers and as people who were unpatriotic. But I think the benefit of hindsight gives us that we are actually raising key concerns that could not be discounted. So in all this, what I'll say is to encourage the chamber. The advocacy needs to be made or sent a notch higher. We need to engage. We need to let the policy people understand why these things are critical for, as it were, the growth of the industry and also the betterment of the lives of the people in that chain. For example, I'm not a fan of Momo, but obviously e-levy and its charges are such that it will not even encourage me to do it in the first place. But that is a serious concern, and that is something that we need to look at. Now, it's become commonplace that if people want to transfer money, even through Momo, because there are e-levy charges, I would simply go to a merchant, do cash out, probably let MTN take 10 Ghana cedis, and then tell the merchant, you know that money I have cashed out, send it. It will be cheaper to go down that route than sending the money directly, as it were, through my channel. But that is not what the whole concept of mobile money was supposed to do. It was supposed to give us convenience. I sit in the comfort of my home and be able to transact. Or I'll even go to the bank and say, bank, do cash out for me and deposit it in my account, because it is cheaper to let the bank do a cash out and deposit it in my account than to pull the money from my Momo into my own bank account. These are some of the challenges we have faced, and technology is supposed to make our lives better, not worse off. But in a bid to avoid the levy, these are the things we face. So I think that we must engage a bit more. What I encourage Doc and his team to do is let's start the engagement pretty much ahead of time. Usually, when we bring it at the last minute when these things are being done, it's more like it's a jumble of pieces and you are in danger territory. So they are not able to understand the focus. But when we start the engagement ahead of time, probably 6 months or so before the budget is ready, we start the engagement of in 9 months, we are able to carve the policy idea down and let them understand it a bit better and get it done. Because it is in all our interest that the chamber would flourish. We'll get telecommunication things to be better. The cost of data and others will be relatively lower. and we can run our businesses and ensure that we get the maximum impact and growth. So for me, that is key. The engagement, the policy discussions, and seeing the way and the flow through to make sure that we achieve our purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. My little contribution is that as the chamber seeks to liaise between government and the sector, they should collate views of the players and share with government like we are doing. And to reiterate what my senior has said, let's start engagement early, because if you don't start early, you don't get your policies through, and by the time you get there, the government has made up its mind on what he wants to bring out. It will take a lot more effort than just talking. You need to push, because like Doc, you have said, this is an industry, looking at the total contribution is quite significant. And as the adage goes, we don't want to kill the hen that lays the golden egg. If we keep on milking and milking and milking, we'll come tomorrow and there'll be no milk to take home. So let's continue to engage with the government and tell the government how important it is for the industry to survive, for the betterment of the whole country. Thank you.
So my last comment would be, how do we encourage investment in the telecom sector, infrastructure? Some countries, the government lays down the infrastructure and private operators operate on it for a fee. I'm not sure Ghana, we are ready to do that, whether government can do that. If government cannot lay the infrastructure like fiber, you understand, so that private companies just hook on and start operating. If we can't do that, then we need some policy reforms that will encourage investment in the infrastructure. The next 10 years ahead of us is not going to be like this yam phones that we have. I mean, things are changing. So now robotics and AI, things are changing fast, and we need to have the infrastructure available. So if we can't get involved as a government, can we be thinking of some policy or tax policy initiatives to allow private people come on board? Let them lay the infrastructure. They can't take it away, surely. When they put it underground, it becomes an asset. So let them lay the infrastructure so that cost of data and cost of telecom can come down drastically. In the villages, we don't have reliable networks. And people, anytime the few, 2 or 3 players in the industry, they experience hitches, banks get stuck because nothing goes on. So I believe that it is time we take telecommunication as a priority, as a national priority, and then help either by participating or coming out with some policy that will help the people invest in the infrastructure. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so thank you very much, and I want to say a big thank you to William and Frank for the insights that they have brought to this conversation, and then also to Francis and the other team from that are tax leads. And the charge has been given to us. We should be proactive in our engagement. So I think we need to start planning towards the mid-year review. And so by January, we would be engaging again. The tax working group will be engaging so that we can start some work. And then definitely Frank and William will be coming to you as well, for you to support us in terms of some of the areas that we need to go into. To my colleagues from the media, it's important that this information reaches, it's not only just to government, but also, most importantly, citizens, so that they all, because at the end of the day, we are the sovereign, and we bear the brunt of the taxes. And again, to reiterate that it's not like the industry does not want to pay taxes. We want to continue paying taxes, but definitely almost a 47% of every money going in form of taxes and levies is not sustainable. And it's the reason why our industry is in the state in which it's in now. And we will take up all the ideas that have come from here and we'll put it together. And I'm sure by the time we are launching the 2023 report, we will talk about all that we have been able to do and keep on increasing our CSR, increasing the recruitments that come from this industry, not only directly, but indirectly as well. So I'd want to thank you all very much for this particular launch. And we will be waiting to be reading and to be hearing it in the media tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much. So we appreciate all of you making time to join us. We promise that it will be a short event. It's about 3:20 now. I'm sure the media would want to do some one-on-ones with Ken when we all leave, but we appreciate your time. Thank you so very much. And like he said, hopefully in January, we'll be engaging the tax working group as well as some of you to prepare for the media budget review. So thank you once again. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So Ken, that brings us to the end of the live stream. The media, some of the media would want to do a quick one-on-one with you for further clarification on the on some of the numbers. Yeah. So yes. So we're going to allow the other members to exit the room, and then we'll get to it.
Thank you so much. Joy business were on the call, but we didn't hear them.
Yes. I don't know why. I actually asked them.
Who was on the Joy business line?
So spoke to the editor himself, and he said he was getting us. They were short-handed, so he was getting us some. I think they are doing. One second, sir. So they're currently doing one with William